Hari Om. So, in chapter 13, there is only in the first half where Krishna says, please make a clear distinction between Kshetra, Kshetragyam. That means the field of action, which is your Panchatattva body, and the inert, subtle body, that is the mind and Buddhi and Ahankar. Subtle, but it's still inert, meaning to say that it does not have sentiency of its own. Only when we are completely aware of what we are thinking, what we are speaking, and what we are doing, is it all in one line? Are we integrated individuals? Who can say that? Only we, because nobody can see our subtle bodies, our subtle minds, what's going on there. Bhagwan here has requested Arjun for a completely integrated personality, and he's saying, please get rid of those aspects of the personality if you want to reach me, those aspects of the personality which are actually an impediment, an obstacle to reaching Bhagwan. But why? What are these qualities first of all? So these qualities, as he has said in verse 8, which we finished, and I'll just read it. Verse 8. Amanitvamadambhitvam ahimsakshantirarjavam acharyopasanam shaucham sthairyamaatma vinigraha. So, he is asking him to be amanitvam, to have humility, have no pride. Adambhitvam, don't have pretentiousness. That's the second word. Ahimsa, non-injury in word, deed, action, or through anybody else, whether it is in a mild form or a strong form. Very often we say, "Arey, kuch zyada nuksan to nahi kiya. I just told a small lie to him, and unka kisi ka nuksan ho sakta hai usse." Ahimsa can be mild or strong. We don't have to always think that those who wage wars are the only ones who are practicing hinsa, violence. No. In act, deed, or thought, even in thinking, very often we can catch ourselves practicing hinsa, that is violence, in some small measure or the other. For example, if there is someone whom we dislike and we are not watching our dislike, कि मुझे ये dislike कहाँ से शुरू हुआ, maybe something triggered it off, something in their action or whatever the situation, whatever the trigger, if we are not watching it, our dislike can turn into hinsa, which means I may deprive that person of some vital piece of information I have in the office. I may not share some of my profit-making techniques that I have in business. Okay, it's a kind of hinsa, not having empathy, not sharing, and in some cases contemplating all the time that हो सकता है कि मुझे ये चीज़ मिल जाए और उनको ना मिले, जो भी हम चाहते हैं सोसाइटी में, and we are all seeking material things only basically. तो हमको ये पद, प्रतिष्ठा, मान, सम्मान मिल जाए, फेम वगैरह, और उनको ना मिले तो अच्छा है. Usually we harbor such feelings only against those whom we feel have done some wrong to us, and we hold on to that so-called wrong for so long that it festers like a wound in the mind and can easily turn into hinsa of a mild kind or a strong kind. Bhagwan is saying you have to watch unless your mind is completely cleansed of hinsa and it turns into complete empathy and compassion for people. I cannot reach you. Who is he? Krishna. Krishna is saying I cannot reach you. Kshantihi, forgiveness. Arjavam, all these 9 qualities are in the verse. Arjavam, straightforwardness. Acharyopasanam, service to the teacher. Shaucham, purity. Sthairyam, steadfastness. Atma vinigraha, self-control. We had seen so far. But before that we need to understand, instead of, this chapter 13 can easily sound like some moral science lesson of class 5 to 6. And in moral science classes we always were shown these words, but they remain only words. Forgiveness and shanti and shaucham and cleanliness is close to godliness, and in fact we remember the words more than the principle or the siddhant behind it. Why? Because we were not encouraged in school to see how it can transform our lives if we have these qualities, and first of all, why we have these qualities. So Krishna has explained very clearly to Arjun that look, these qualities are not to make you just morally upright. It is for you to finally find that ultimate truth. You cannot find that ultimate truth if your mind and your personality is clouded over with the heavy crust of dust on the mirror. You cannot reflect the sun. The mirror cannot reflect the sun if there's a heavy crust. So I cannot reflect consciousness. I cannot reflect the divine God in me if I'm already encrusted with this pretentiousness and pride and non-forgiveness and violence, etc. And you know, all the vanities and materialism brings a lot of vanity and sense of desire for approval, etc. The first thing we are taught is understand how the mind works. By knowing the words by themselves, it's not going to cleanse us. So we are expected to understand why the mind works in a certain way. And we saw yesterday that aman its one means be without pride. And we have pride about all the things which are actually gifted to us by nature or by people around us or in the family that we are born. We didn't choose our family, and instead of being grateful that we were in a situation to have those qualities and talents and also the material luxuries, of course, we just suddenly found ourselves with, you know, being able to go to the best universities and qualify ourselves and develop our intellect only for the material world, and we begin to take pride in all these outer material things. And Bhagavan says, be careful, I am trying to cleanse you of all this, the pride and pretentiousness and unforgiveness. Why? Because none of these is you. Basic bottom line we have to understand is that none of these qualities is really me. So I have to shake it off. The longer I hold on to it, the longer I'm going to be stuck with the janma of more and more of the bodies again and again and more birth, because I'm stuck with the avaran, the covering, the envelope. So these qualities which we hang on to, and we may say defend ourselves, and we are very good at actually justifying it. See, नहीं, मैं तो उसको गुस्सा इसलिए किया कि उसने पहले कुछ बोला था. We are always justifying. And I am upset with that person because he borrowed a large amount of money and he's actually my relative and he has not mentioned a word about returning the money. How ungrateful. All this poison is churning in my mind, not in the other's mind. So we are good at justifying all these aberrations or vikara, as we call, of personality or character that we indulge in, but we justify and brush it off. But that's not cleansing. So be careful even before justifying. Am I justifying the wrong thing to myself? We don't have to justify anything to the world actually. So when we convince our minds, we are trying to make our minds comfortable with who I am. So if I want to be comfortable with my my pride, my pretentiousness, and my own unforgiveness. Why should I forgive him? He has taken lakhs of rupees and he is now turning away my phone calls. Okay, that's his problem. We'll see how Shanti, forgiveness, is a magic word for us. But the thing is, the more we hang on to these, the more we are poisoning ourselves. And the whole sad story is that all these avaran or these qualities are not the real me. That's why these qualities make us more uncomfortable, as well as those around us, of course. They are also made unhappy and uncomfortable if we have these qualities. I was talking about justification. Yes, we are very quick at justifying and brushing it aside and leaving it and say, हमने तो ऐसा किया क्योंकि. Now that क्योंकि we have to watch out, because there is no reason at all that God is going to accept and say कि अच्छा तुमने गुस्सा किस लिए किया. I don't care. गुस्सा किया, that's all. That is a movement away from divinity, from being divine, from being cleansed of these qualities. So watch out for justifications, and also we have to be very careful that we don't let these things go unaware. Justify तो तब करते हैं हम जब aware हो जाते हैं. Even more darkness of the mind is कि मुझे पता ही नहीं कि मैं गुस्सैल हूँ, मैं irritable हूँ, and I talk ill of others, and I happily gossip in social gatherings about so and so's somebody else's family unhappiness or somebody else's situations. I happily gossip. I look down upon people. I talk down to people because they don't have the kind of material wealth that I have acquired. So I have this vanity about myself and I talk down. I don't have the simplicity at all. And you know which is the worst kind of darkness? The worst kind of darkness is of the mind which is unexamined. Theodore, no, not Theodore, this is, I'll tell you who, is a Western thinker who said that darkness is an unexamined mind. I think Socrates himself said it. An unexamined mind, which means that there is even more tamas in a mind कि जिसको पता ही नहीं कि मैं ये सब करता हूँ. और दूसरा वो है कि अच्छा उसको पता लग गया, किसी ने मतलब किसी ने गुरु या ग्रंथ या टीचर ने बता दिया या खुद अवेयर हो गए और उसको जस्टिफाई कर रहे हैं. सेकेंड लेवल ऑफ डार्कनेस. एंड थर्ड इज examine it, be rid of it, because it is a canker, it is a kind of cancer which will eat away into our spiritual life. I cannot overemphasize this at all, because you know we have become immune to these words. Don't be proud, you must forgive, don't be violent. Because why have we become immune? Because these words have been used not fruitlessly, not frivolously also, but in a kind of casual way in our school models, in our school textbooks, and it was treated only as just another material to be taught in some schools. I'm not saying everywhere. And therefore the real value of it is lost, and we say, what is this, moral science? Why is Krishna giving Arjun a lesson in moral science? But if we see very, very deep within, we cannot transform our lives enough to be able to see the divine, because this is a heavy cloud that is obscuring the view of the sun. And then we say कि क्या है, spirituality से हमको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है life में. But we must remember, the fact that we want to listen again and again, the fact that we stay out and awake at sleepy hours of the afternoon and morning, the fact that we pull time out, we could be doing other things, we could be watching Amazon or Hotstar or Netflix, like millions of people are doing. But the fact that I'm drawn out to come and at least listen to Krishna is itself a change. We should not dishearten ourselves and say कि कोई change नहीं हो रहा. Krishna is drawing us to him every time on hot afternoons, and for an hour when to just listen to one monologue. Yes, because it is Krishna's monologue. And so having said that, change is where we begin. Why should I change? मैं भक्ति में विश्वास करता हूँ. कोई भक्ति में ऐसे कहते, स्वामी जी लोग से, स्वामी जी देखो, मैं भक्ति में विश्वास करता हूँ, मैंने अपने आप को अर्पण कर दिया है भगवान के चरणों में, और at his feet let him take care of me, and I am going to see that whether he is going to purify my mind and my personality or not. Okay, bhakti I can understand, but the level of bhakti that this is a kind of surrender without any responsibility. हमको अपनी जिम्मेदारी खुद लेना है. Unless I take that much of a responsibility to transform myself. How? Through contemplation. ये कोई action नहीं है कि आज से मैं without pride रहूँगा. Without pride, तो फिर उसमें action क्या करना है? None of these things are matter of action. कि आज मैं एक महायज्ञ करा देता हूँ, एक महापूजा, और I'll be cleansed. एक गंगा में I'll take a dip in the Ganga and I'll be cleansed. The outer action can never cleanse the inner subtle personality. It comes only and only with contemplation on the highest. And the highest keeps telling us that we are not any of these things. All these things which are Kama, Krodha, Mad, Lobha, Moha, Acharya, envy, jealousy and desire, which is coming, all of it is coming from the one root disease which is called desire for this or that, that desire, if I can have a command over, then I am the master of my life. Not only this life, I am the master of my destiny right through many lifetimes. तो ये विकार अगर हम, if I am watching it, I can only do it through contemplation, through reflection, and then think that oh, ये काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह तो मुझे अटैच कर ही नहीं सकते अगर मैं spirit हूँ, if I am consciousness. If I am thinking I am this body with a name and certain status in society, लोग मुझे ये मानते हैं वो मानते हैं, then that's a very good strong platform for Kama Krodh Mad Lobha Moh to play on. Don't give it a platform. Just say, who am I? I am just a dot in this cosmic time. I have actually we are one little whiff, one little pook from God, and the life is wiped out. We don't even know whether we are going to exist in the next for the next breath or for the next day or years, or we don't know. Everything is unpredictable. It's in the hand of destiny or God, but we make a lot of ourselves. Coming to the question, what makes us feel a sense of pretentiousness कि मैं ये हूँ मैं वो हूँ और मुझे अगर किसी को दिखाना है दुनिया को कि मैं इतना बड़ा हूँ, we try to project something and create a kind of a aura around ourselves and hype ourselves up. You know, मैं ऐसा करता हूँ, हम तो ऐसे कर सकते हैं, हमारे बच्चे तो ऐसा कर सकते हैं, वो तो इतना अचीव कर रहे हैं, हमारे घर में फला फला ऐसा होता है. Why are we hyping ourselves so much? The moment we are hyping ourselves so much or getting caught in it, when people in society are doing it, what we are doing is we are getting addicted to approval, dependence on other people's approval कि हाँ वो मुझे आप मान देंगे, अगर मैं इतना अपने आप को हाइप करूँगा, इतना दिखावा करूँगा तो मुझे मान मिलेगा. हाँ मिलेगा, क्योंकि हमारी सोसाइटी उस तरह की हो गई है. It has come to the status, to the level where society is naturally giving more respect to people with greater wealth and big cars and big homes and etc. And so-called material success. Yes, they also give respect to swamis, to people of high knowledge. But Bhagavan is saying create a personality where you are just yourself. Just be yourself. Unpretentious. कि मुझे कोई मेरी vulnerability, मेरी weakness ना देख ले तो मैं उसको cover up करने में लगा रहता हूँ. And then and then in order to show that I am as wealthy as my neighbor or my relatives, I get into extravagant parties and extravagant wedding celebrations. Extravagant. क्यों? Because I have got because I'm thriving on flattery, let's call it that way. The moment I say, I'm thriving on flattery and I'm dependent on people's approval, and the moment you see this is the quality of the mind, you don't want such a quality of mind. Thriving on flattery and dependent on people's approval कि वो मुझे approve करेंगे तभी मैं खुश रहूँगा. When you see the weakness of such a mind, you say, it's okay. I will just have a wedding which is simple, or I'll have a wedding where, and many people have done it, because they have a great sense of self-esteem. इतना self-esteem उनका नहीं गिर गया है कि उनको पैसा फेंक कर मान खरीदना पड़ता है लोगों से. तो when you see this, you drop your pretentiousness. यानी कि दंभ, अदम्भित्वम भगवान कह रहे हैं, be without दंभ, because that pretentiousness is not you. हम अपने मुख को कवर करके, I cannot see God, I'm covering myself and I'm thriving on other people's flattery. What a poor way to live, what a beggarly way to live. Be confident, I'll be who I am. And also you don't have to then feel the stress of keeping up the image कि मैंने अब ऐसी इमेज अपनी बना ली है, अब मुझे इमेज को प्रोटेक्ट करना है. तो that takes even more effort, but it is effortless to be just who we are. It happens very often when youngsters, they are given the right education in the school, they are taught many of these things, but when they go out, society's pressure is quite a bit, so what they call peer pressure, and they give in to the peer pressure. For example, I saw a girl in one of the celebration. They had a big event, social event, marathon kind of a thing happening in our city, and there was this young girl who was in a group. She saw that the sticker, each participant had to wear a sticker, and so when you peel off the back of the sticker, the paper, the back paper was just being strewn around, and she noticed and she said, "Hey, why don't I pick it up?" And I was watching from the sidelines, and everyone around her friends said, "Hey, this is not our job." And some of them scoffed at her, some of them laughed at her, some of them said, "Come on, it's not our job. What, you want to show yourself as something great or what?" And the poor girl, she felt quite miserable about leaving the litter around, because that was her value, and she actually did not step out. She could have said, "Chalo, hum kar lete hain, it's okay," without trying to seem too wise or too superior. She could have quietly done it. She hurt her own feelings by not being able to do what she wanted to do, clear up the litter, and at the same time giving in to false values. We all give in to false values. This is at a young level, and youngsters may be misled, but you will be surprised at how much at our age we are misled when we say कि हमने तो फला अपनी वेडिंग की शॉपिंग हमने तो हाई स्ट्रीट में दुबई में जाके की हुई है. अरे भाई, so what? It doesn't make you a greater person. And then what you hear next year is कि अरे वो marriage about which they were hyping up so much, and these are real incidents. I cannot name people, but it's quite comically tragic, I must say. Tragic because they don't see the futility of it, and it's comic also because it has really no meaning. Comically tragic is the only word to say. After a few years, after having hyped up their wedding preparations, हमने यहाँ shopping की, दुबई गए, and we got so many gifts for people, and we also are the recipients of the same gifts. Remember, we are participants in such weddings, and we receive great return gifts or whatever they call it. And after 2 years you hear, अरे उनकी शादी तो टूट गई. So there was some trouble, the youngsters couldn't get along with each other, उनकी तो टूट गई. So what's the big deal? So why are you making such a big thing about weddings? Why is it that at weddings youngsters are not trained, wedding is just an example, are not trained to talk about what a relationship is, what is the purpose of marriage, and what makes relationships last. Not only marriages, but other relationships like friendships and relatives and all. What makes it last? Why can't we give any proper counseling to people who are getting into a new life? Instead of that, we are training them by throwing extravagant parties. We are training them to say that, in the future also, when you have your first anniversary and your 20th and your 50th anniversary, you stick to the same standard, and they blindly follow the same standard. The parties just get bigger, brighter, and more hollow. They were hollow in the first place. This is not just my personal experience. It is a simple way of saying that the values that we expected from our youngsters are the same values Krishna wants from Arjun. That is to be Adam Bitvam, to have no pretentiousness, to be considerate to others, to make sure that the wealth is distributed. If I have the fortune, I'm lucky if I have enough fortune and good jobs and more wealth than I can use. That is, more wealth than my family can use. Then what do I do with the rest? Yes, then I should go out and share it with people who are actually in need. Adam Bitvam is a word which stands out like a sore thumb in today's society, where pretension has become the norm and we don't question it. It's become such a norm that we don't stop to question it. Neither ourselves, nor our neighbors, nor our relatives, nor our children. And if you don't question it, we are not going to move on the path that sadly Krishna has to point out to Arjun. So we have to be careful to be just who we are. How? Just be natural. Why talk about things and hype ourselves up? Just be natural. And also the solution, one of the solutions is, and this is the biggest solution, if only we could teach our children, stop making comparisons. There is actually no comparison between two people because they bring a different baggage of prarabdha and different swabhava and different destinies from millions of lives before. How can you compare anything? But still I want to compare my car and my status and my name and the extent of my wealth and the kind of holidays that I can have across the world, the kind of travel that I can do across the world should match up with so and so, some relatives. I'm not very sure whether this is a common thing, but unfortunately I have come across this as common in and around my community. So I am tempted to think that this is not such an odd thing, that comparisons are causing everyone to go down the wrong path. If only we could teach our children, don't compare, and we could tell our minds, don't compare. Be comfortable in your skin, be comfortable how you are, and have the courage and confidence to strike out. If somebody is throwing a big diamond-studded glittering party at their 25th or 30th wedding anniversary, maybe I don't feel like it. Maybe I want to go out and feed 25,000 children. If you want to keep to the figure 25, make some difference in 25 different charitable homes. Maybe. But that courage we don't have. Because what will people say? वो क्या कहेंगे, लोग क्या कहेंगे, is a form of spiritual poverty. एक गरीबी, एक paucity of spiritual life. So, and the other thing is always tell the truth. Why pretentiousness comes when we don't have to when we don't tell the truth and we are trying to hide something or the other. Okay, we don't have to hide. What is the insecurity about? Self-esteem or sense of security हमको उठा के रखना है अपना, and for the next generation. And we have to accept that. Finally we have to accept कि हम जो भी करेंगे अपने values के हिसाब से, and there will always be people out there in the world who will mock us, laugh at us, look down at us, or not like us at all. Some, not all. So what? Because they're not meant to understand it. The life is not made such that everyone has to understand us, everyone has to accept us, and everyone has to like us. अगर ये सोच के चलेंगे, we will never be able to follow the values that Krishna is taking so much trouble to talk about. Ahimsa. Ahimsa, of course, I have already mentioned it. It comes in word, deed and thought. Word, deed and thought. कि हम किसी के बारे में सोच भी ले, which is not a very charitable thought about that person. It is a form of ahimsa. We think it is harmless and therefore we ignore it, and then it becomes part of the personality. What are the forms of speech which are violent? Violent meaning, yes, leading to violence. Sarcasm. Sarcasm is the worst form of harm that we can do to people. Being sarcastic. Sarcasm is tanz kasna, as they say. And talking down and gossiping about other people in our free time. And if you see anyone in your society, within the group that we happen to be seated with, and they happen to be gossiping, we have the choice, isn't it, to just get up and politely say, oh, I need to get a cup of tea, excuse me. If I am part of it, I will be dragged into it. And it has happened to many of us. It cannot be denied. Carrying tales. Carrying tales about that so and so did something bad to me, and now I need to group up and gang up against that person. So carrying tales within families, it happens all the time. Violence happens the amount of violence that happens within families is actually beginning to get documented only in this century. Because everyone used to think violence happens out there, either on the battlefront or on the streets. No, it happens in the families, within relatives, and of course it starts with the mind. So carrying tales, gossip, non-acceptance, and using harsh words, we all know. So harshness of words is also a form of violence. The only time we will remember how to be kind is that every time we speak, we must remember that Bhagavan Krishna has said, your words should have only 3 qualities. Otherwise, don't even open your mouth. You don't need to, unless you're eating, of course. Only 3 things you need, otherwise don't even utter a word. You don't need it. Silence is much more divine if you are quiet. What are these 3 things, ways in which I can express myself through words? Hitam vada, priyam vada, satyam vada. Only. हाँ बस उसमें सब कुछ आ जाता है. Satyam vada, only when you need to speak the truth, say it. Otherwise, no need. What's the need? Hitam vada, if my words are going to help someone, कि भाई ऐसा कर लो तो हो सकता है कि तुमको राइट डायरेक्शन मिल जाए. हितम वद, किसी का हित अगर हो रहा है मेरे शब्दों से तो आप बोलिए. वद यानी टू स्पीक. ओके. एंड प्रियम वद, इवन इफ आई हैव टू टेल समवन, लुक, this addiction of alcohol, this addiction of drugs, or what you're doing is really not good. In fact, some people have the addiction of telling lies and manipulating. Bhagwan says, if you have to speak, priyam vada, say it nicely. Priyam, say it lovingly. Otherwise, don't speak. अगर हमको याद रह गया ना कि हमको बात करने की ज़रूरत है ही नहीं, unless, of course, apart from functional communication, जो हमारे रोज के जीवन के लिए functionally I have to communicate. Beyond that communication, it has to be hitam vada, satyam vada, and priyam vada. Otherwise, no need to speak. Why is it that why do we get into violent words or violent thoughts or violent actions? Simply because, as in chapter 3, Bhagwan had said, Kama esha, Krodha esha. कोई हमको desire हमारे मन में है, वो fulfill नहीं हो रहा है. कोई मेरे सामने उसमें रोड़ा बन के आ गया है. Somebody is causing an obstruction in the fulfillment of some desire which I have in my mind, and anger arises. Kama esha, Krodha esha. These are the only 2 things we have to watch out. Even this long list will not be needed after that. Because desire leads to all these other aberrations. And why do we get in, why are we continuing the way we are continuing? Because we cannot deny that harsh thoughts or words are on our lips sometimes. If not words, at least thoughts. Why? Because first of all, we are not watching it. So we are not aware that it's not the right thing. If we are watching it, we are justifying it. मैंने ऐसा किया क्योंकि फला फला सही नहीं है. That no excuse. In भगवान के दरबार में there are no excuses. No one is going to listen to justifications. The only thing which will be recorded is गुस्सा आया. Desire was given free rein. काम क्रोध मद लोभ मोह was not controlled. इंद्रियों पर वश नहीं था. बस personality पर imprint पड़ गया, ठप्पा पड़ गया. It will be signed, sealed and delivered. The personality, I mean, for the next life. Finished. उसमें excuses लिखने की कॉलम ही नहीं है. वो फाइल ऐसी नहीं है कि उसमें कॉलम में लिख दें excuses. सरकारी फाइल नहीं है ये. So काम क्रोध, these are going to be carried forward. भगवान के दरबार में no justification holds. उन्होंने इतना पैसा लेके मुझे वापस नहीं किया, मेरे बच्चे सफ़र करें. They could not go to a good college because somebody cheated me of lakhs of rupees. Okay, no problem. It was prarabdha. How can I forgive? इसलिए अगला वर्ड आता है शांति ही, not शांति. श वाला शांति नहीं, क्ष वाला. Last word in the first line. शांति. शांति यानी कि I have to understand कि first of all चाहे जितना कोई मुझे चीट कर ले या हार्म कर ले या नीचा दिखा दे या मे टेक ग्रेट एडवांटेज ऑफ मी, नुकसान करा दे, नो वन कैन टच माई एसेंस। 4 चीजें अगर हम याद रखें ना तो हमको फॉरगिवनेस यानी क्षमा करने में बहुत बहुत आसानी होगी। 4 चीजें बस केवल याद रख लें। सबसे पहला कि चाहे कितना भी वो हार्म करे मुझे, ही कैन नॉट और शी कैन नॉट टच माई एसेंस। मेरा एसेंस तो कॉन्शियसनेस है भाई। मैं ये बॉडी, ये मैं नाम, ये रूप, ये फला औधा, मैं इस कंपनी का चेयरमैन हूँ या उस कंपनी का CEO हूँ या मैं फला फला कमांडेंट की वाइफ हूँ, ये सब तो टेम्पररी है। माई एसेंस इज कॉन्शियसनेस, हु कैन टच इट? नो वन कैन कॉज हार्म टू इट। तो वो तो वहां तक पहुंच ही नहीं सकता, किसी का शस्त्र, किसी का अस्त्र। सो आई एम प्रोटेक्टेड बाय द डिवाइन लॉर्ड। दूसरी बात याद रखना है दैट जो भी कोई कर रहा है वो खुद ही हेल्पलेस है भाई। हेल्पलेस क्यों? उसने तो बड़ा सोच समझ के मुझे चीट किया था। हाँ, हेल्पलेस क्योंकि वो अपने स्वभाव के वशीभूत है, यानी कि ही इज नॉट एबल टू हेल्प द फोर्स ऑफ हिज ओन स्वभाव, जिसमें वेदांतिक वर्ड है वासना। वासना डजंट स्टैंड फॉर लस्ट हियर। वेदांत में वासना को द फोर्स ऑफ प्रीवियस इम्प्रेशंस को वासना कहा गया है। तो प्रीवियस लाइव्स में या इस लाइफ में जो उसके इम्प्रेशंस बन गए हैं पर्सनालिटी में, वो उसके मोमेंटम से, उसके फोर्स से प्रोपेल होके कर रहा है। जैसे कुछ लोग कहते हैं ना, आई कांट हेल्प इट यार, आई जस्ट लूज माई टेम्पर, आई कांट हेल्प इट। उसी तरह when I look down upon someone, disparage, and I look down upon them, I feel superior, it's also an aberration of character, just like drinking or smoking or anger, same thing. He is helpless. वो अपने स्वभाव के वशीभूत हैं। अपना स्वभाव वो बदलेंगे, वो चाहे तो बदल सकते हैं, that is their business, not my business. अगर वो हमको चीट कर रहे हैं, हार्म कर रहे हैं, in whatever way they are not able to protect my respect, कभी कभी disrespect भी हो जाता है, okay, it's उनका स्वभाव। Third thing to remember is karmic law will take care of their actions. आप और हम, हमारा ये विषय है ही नहीं। It's not in our ken, it's not in our power, nor is it our business कि अब उनको तो मजा चखाना है। अरे वो हमारा बिजनेस नहीं है, वो कार्मिक लॉ का बिजनेस है। अगर हमने उनको मजा चखाया बाय वायलेंस, बाय हिंसा, तो क्या होगा? आई एम कलेक्टिंग द कर्मा ऑफ दैट हिंसा फॉर माई फ्यूचर लाइफ। तो अब नुकसान किसको हुआ? द वन हु इज रिएक्टिंग। नुकसान उसको। अगर हम ये नुकसान समझ लेना कि हमको कितना नुकसान हो रहा है हर वक्त बाय रिएक्टिंग टू पीपल, वी विल बी शॉक्ड एंड वी विल से कि अरे मुझे दूसरों का ख्याल रखना चाहिए क्योंकि उसी से मैं अपना ख्याल रख सकता हूँ। आई कैन टेक केयर ऑफ माई डेस्टिनी, माई स्वभाव एंड माई वेलफेयर ओनली इफ आई स्टॉप रिएक्टिंग। चौथी चीज क्षमा में आसान हो जाता है जब हम याद रखें कि अरे जो मेरे साथ कर रहा है उसका एसेंस भी तो वही है। कॉन्शियसनेस इज नॉट टू, इट इज नॉट डिविजिबल कि हम उसको चाकू से लेके काट दें और बोले कि ये उसकी आत्मा है, ये मेरी आत्मा है। नैनम छिंदन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनम दहति पावकः। कॉन्शियसनेस ऐसा है कि ना आप उसको शस्त्र से काट सकते हैं, ना उसको आग से जला सकते हैं। नैनम क्लेदयन्त्यापः, ना उसको पानी से गीला कर सकते हैं। न शोषयति मारुतः, न उसको हवा से सुखा सकते हैं। 16th वर्स चैप्टर 2, नैनम छिंदन्ति शस्त्राणि नैनम दहति पावकः। अच्छा, ये कॉन्शियसनेस का डिस्क्रिप्शन किसकी कॉन्शियसनेस का हम डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं? अरे भाई, अपना और उनका और सबका और पूरे ब्रह्मांड का। इट्स द सेम। अगर ये याद आ गया, ये तो थोड़ा हायर लेवल का रिमेम्बरेंस है, अगर ये याद आ गया तो हमको वी वोंट फील लाइक टेकिंग रिवेंज और फीलिंग हर्ट ऑल द टाइम और नर्सिंग आवर हर्ट, क्योंकि फिर हमारा मन कॉन्टम्पलेट नहीं करेगा ऑल द टाइम कि उसने ये क्यों कहा, उसने ऐसा क्यों नहीं कर दिया, एंड मैंने उसके लिए इतना किया था और उसने पलट के मुझे has shown ingratitude. What is my mind doing? It is contemplating on the hurt. What is the purpose of my mind? The mind is a very sophisticated instrument Bhagwan has given us. और उसको हम contemplation of भगवान में ही लगाना चाहिए, because it has the capacity to contemplate Bhagwan, the supreme consciousness, the supreme reality, the essence of which everything and everyone is made. उस essence पर हम अपना ध्यान ले जाए तो वो contemplation बदल जाएगा, लेकिन नहीं, हमारा मन free नहीं है, it's busy contemplating on other things कि इन्होंने ऐसा कर दिया and I'm very unhappy, और so I'm not able to forgive. या फिर डिज़ायर्स में फंसा रहता है कि आगे ये हो जाए तो बहुत अच्छा, एक नई प्रॉपर्टी किसी ने मेंशन कर दी है, अब देखते हैं, हो सकता है हम वो खरीद लें तो अच्छा है ना, एक फार्म हाउस भी हो जाएगा। अब हमारा मन कॉन्टेम्पलेशन में उस डिज़ायर में बहता चला गया विदाउट माई एबिलिटी टू रेन इट इन, टू होल्ड इट बैक। माई एबिलिटी इज लॉस्ट, माई पावर ऑन माई इंद्रिया इज लॉस्ट, माई पावर ऑन माई माइंड इज लॉस्ट। सो whose mind is it? And whose mind is going to change the personality of this jiva who I am, and whose jiva is then going to turn into the prarabdha or vasana of next life. So whose destiny am I designing right now with every single thought that passes by? Your own destiny is being designed. By whom? By us. So the very contemplation, and sometimes if we are not vigilant, actually we have to be only vigilant in the beginning, क्योंकि एकदम से change नहीं होता. The mind has been spoilt by us by letting it run into all kinds of fields. So वो इतना spoilt mind है ना, so in the beginning it has to be only vigilance with which we say, oh, I am now thinking about how my cousin has cheated me. जो भी, it's just a small example. I'm sure every one of us has got something that sort of pinches every day. You know, that's like a thorn in the flesh. क्योंकि संसार में हम सब रह रहे हैं, संसार में सबका कुछ ना कुछ ऐसी छोटी मोटी होती रहती है, और वो thorn in the flesh we allow it to remain there. So the moment it's not that it will not recur in the mind. The moment it recurs, I can be my own santri, my own sentinel, stand sentinel at the gate of my own mind and say, hey, stop. अगर इतनी पावर भी नहीं है तो some of the Swamis say, suddenly just change your mind and in your mind say loudly Om Namah Shivaya, या जो भी आपका हरे कृष्णा और जय श्री कृष्णा, जो भी आपका इष्ट जो मंत्र है, ओम बोल दीजिए। कहाँ? मन में। What happens to the mind which suddenly changes track to Om? The mind stops right there in shock. अच्छा, mind उधर जा रहा था. Now the mind is shocked into silence. Doesn't mean कि अगली सुबह मैं उठूंगा. Doesn't mean that the thought of what my bad cousin did to me will not come again. Yes. The thing is, when we are practicing to control our minds and to keep it in check, to keep it on Bhagwan, to keep it in studies, to read and listen to more and more, again and again, कितनी बार भी हम 10 बार भी अगर गीता सुन ले तो हमको कम पड़ता है. क्यों? क्योंकि उन्हीं के शब्द, कृष्ण के शब्द हमको बार बार याद दिलाते हैं कि अरे भाई तुम जीव नहीं हो, तुम जीव और ईश्वर मिल के हो दोनों. क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञम चैप्टर 13 में जो शब्द यूज किए गए हैं, क्षेत्र क्षेत्रज्ञम, यू आर मैटर एज वेल एज स्पिरिट. उन्हीं के शब्द हमको बार बार याद दिलाते हैं. सो it's like a gong, you know, when the Buddhists, when they pray or when they meditate, every now and then there will be this gong that will go resounding, reverberating right through the hall. Suddenly it brings the mind back in case it was wandering, क्योंकि monks के minds भी wander करते होंगे. So meditation, there is dead silence in the hall, and there are so many of the monks who are meditating and there's silence. And you imagine कि सबके मन के अंदर भी वही silence होगा. ज़रूरी नहीं है. Sometimes it's a noisy mind. So this gong, so suddenly it sounds in the hall and it brings the mind back. Okay, So this is a technique the Buddhists use. Why can't we use a technique by shocking our own minds with a very loud Om or something? It shocks the mind and says, okay. So what happens with practice? This is of course only one of the practices. We don't have to leave our Swadhyaya, reading of the scriptures, listening, Shravanam of the scriptures, that we can't leave, because those are reminders to us. All this over a period of time, it's just that the intensity of the thoughts reduces, and then the frequency of the thoughts also reduces. You mean bad thoughts? Arey nahi, bad and good. How does it matter? Good thoughts mean, what are good thoughts? If you are thinking about doing something for the welfare of others, yes, it's a good thought. Go ahead and do it. Why mull over it? Why keep it, regurgitated in the mind? Not needed. Mind begins to slow down. That's the trick of meditation in any case. And also watching your mind in when it wanders off into the garbage bin, as Chinmaji used to call it. He also called it the sorrowful ditches of sansar. He used to say, sorrowful ditches of sansar में आप घूम रहे हो और आपको पता भी नहीं. अरे नहीं पता, क्योंकि हमने इसमें कंफर्टेबल हो गए हैं. अब हमको यही विचारों में हमको कंफर्ट लेवल लगता है. थिंकिंग अबाउट दिस एंड दैट. उन्होंने शादी कैसे करवाई और उन्होंने पार्टीज कैसे करवाई, उन्होंने ये मर्सिडीज बेंज कैसे खरीदा होगा. समथिंग मस्ट बी रॉन्ग विद द वे दे हैव अर्न्ड देयर वेल्थ थ्रू बिजनेस. दे मस्ट हैव ब्राइब्ड समवन. अरे ये सब थॉट्स में हम अपने मन में क्यों रख रहे हैं? माय माइंड इज बिकमिंग टर्जिड एंड हैवी एंड polluted by thinking all these thoughts. So reducing the frequency and reducing the intensity, it comes only with practice. Practice of meditation, or with this vigilance of reminding the mind, hey, stop, you are wandering into the garbage bin, come back. And finally, if I'm involved too much in reading the biography of, say, Chinmaji or Vivekananda or any of the great masters, Tapovan Maharaj, or you may come across so many, my mind does not have a chance to wander, because it is involved in the life of these great masters. So that's another way. Or in music, or in art, or in some kind of they call it Satwik entertainment. Chalo theek hai, isko naam de dete hain, Satwik entertainment. Or if I am listening, or if I have been given homework and I have to get into that shloka and say ki, अरे इसका मतलब क्या है, मुझे तो I have to paraphrase it in English. अब हम उसमें लग गए, मेरा आधा घंटा I did not have a chance to let my mind wander. So पहले तो we have to keep the mind hooked on to something which is Satwik, and later it will be free, go even beyond Satwik. वो तो दूर की बात है. तो क्षमा नहीं करना यानी कि हम अपने को नुकसान पहुंचा रहे हैं. एक कहानी है मुल्ला नसरुद्दीन की. वो एक समय he was seated in the village square, and he had this strange thing tied to his back. So a friend of his came and he says ki actually his manservant Fazlu came along and he said, मुल्ला जी, ये आपके पीछे भी क्या बंधा हुआ है, आज आप यहाँ क्यों बैठे हुए हैं? मुल्ला नसरुद्दीन said, you know something, I am so brave, this is a live bomb tied to your own back. So Fazlu was shocked. Nasruddin said, yes, you know why? Because there is this nasty guy, and he comes from the other ghat. Ghat where? Because Nasruddin's business was actually rearing donkeys. So the competitor used to come and just he used to give him a hard slap on his back, as if in jest, but it was very hurtful. And Mullah Nasruddin knew that he wanted to pretend it is just a joke, just in jest, but he was hurting me every time. And he said, I've got sick of this. Every time he meets me, he gives me this whack on the back. Let him come now. The moment he gives me a whack on the back, he is going to blow up his own hand into smithereens, because there is a bomb. How funny is that? Because Mullah Nasruddin's own back would have been blown by the bomb. If I cannot forgive and I allow revenge to fester, the thought of revenge to fester in my mind, and I take revenge, who is hurt? Both the parties. मुल्ला नसरुद्दीन का वो बॉम्ब उनको पहले मारता और वो बेचारे दूसरे आदमी को बाद में मारता. तो खुद हम स्वयं को we are causing ourselves a great spiritual damage, causing damage by holding these thoughts. Forgiveness, of course, it brings us the peace. Moment we have forgiven, forgotten, and we have moved on, the greatest peace is experienced by us. And the worst part is we don't remember, we are not able to keep in mind that incident which hurt us had occurred once. But in our minds, it is occurring and recurring millions of times after that. What a waste. एक बार हो जाता है इंसिडेंट, लेकिन हमारे मन में वो प्ले आउट करता है again and again hundreds of times. So this is just a waste of time. Some examples about forgiveness. You know that the Pandavas, of course, were the people who were chaste, first of all, and also their power was what was envied by the Kauravas. So the Kauravas tried everything in their power. They poisoned Bhim. They put them in a lacquer house one day and they burned down the house. Fortunately, they escaped each time. They have done a lot of things. They misbehaved with their wife, Draupadi. Each time, what did the Pandavas do after such a mistreatment? They could have gone and slaughtered the Kauravas out of anger. Remember that the Mahabharata slaughtering was not out of revenge or anger. Krishna has made it very clear. He said you have to do it to establish dharma. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. It was only done like a surgeon has to wield his knife to cure the tumor. And therefore the cut has to be made. So it's not a violent cut. It's not the cut of a butcher. The butcher also uses the same knife, by the way. But same knife meaning the same kind of instrument. But the surgeon's knife is meant for curing and the butcher's knife is meant for killing. So it was not an act of violence. So then Pandavas, what did they do? Before the war began, they still went and sent Krishna as their peace ambassador of peace. जाओ भाई जरा धृतराष्ट्र के दरबार में और जाके उनसे कहो कि let's put this war off, please don't get into this battle. Ambassador of peace, they sent Krishna when they had been wronged in so many ways. They had been, so much of intrigue had gone into trying to destroy them, burning down their house and all that. And in the end, the worst part is, we know that Dhritarashtra was finally responsible for the beginning of the war because he wanted power for his own sons and he was blinded figuratively as well as physically. Figuratively blinded by desire for, by his love for his sons, so that he could not see right from wrong. And at the end, you know what Gandhari did? She knew that Dhritarashtra is responsible for the war, but because she could not tolerate the slaughter and seeing her 100 sons dead in front of her, she cursed Krishna. Krishna was not the cause of the war, but Krishna had to bear the curse that Gandhari put upon him. And therefore he died because of, much later in life of course, when he was killed by the arrow of a hunter, that is Krishna, because of the curse of Gandhari. When you can't forgive, this is what you do. You can even curse a holy man or avatar. Let's call him avatar. So that's why Krishna warned Arjun right in the beginning of the battle. He said, Arjun, you will fight, but you will not fight with hatred. Sukha dukhe samay kritva labha labha jaya jayo. In victory and in defeat and in sorrow and in joy, in loss or in profit, tatha yuddha yujjasva. You just battle on without a thought about these. Naivam papama vapsyasi. This is from chapter 2. Naivam papama vapsyasi. Only if you battle without hatred, you will not collect pap. Pap is what? This baggage which we are carrying with us. कि जाओ फिर से जन्म, फिर से मृत्यु, फिर से जरा, व्याधि. The quickest way for us to forgive and to go into Vairagya is to realize that, oh, I don't want to be born again with the same dosha of the same sorrow and pain of Jara, Vyadhi and Mrityu, the pain, disease, decay and death. Yes, that is collecting pap. So Arjun was warned, before you get into battle, make sure you're fighting only for dharma. Arjun, this is not your battle at all, first of all. It's not your battle. It's a battle of dharma. And when we do something for the larger community or society, like Arjun was asked to do for the kingdom, then the entire society is happy. So for example, we do something only for our own happiness. If we do it selfishly, it may not spread that kind of happiness. So, the example given is that of many parts. Okay, there are many parts in the body. And you may try and treat them all as different and say, oh, why did my teeth bite my tongue? It's hurting. Okay, so punish your teeth. No, it's part of me. That's why. How can you punish anyone? Everyone is part of the same Brahman, the same consciousness. No, because I consider myself, all the parts, as one whole, but we don't see the oneness in everything else around. No, I can't punish my teeth. How do I punish my teeth? By knocking it out, because it bit my tongue. Okay, knock it out. Who will be the sufferer? We will become toothless and we are the sufferers. Same thing happens with joy. When there is joy to the tongue, suppose we have some very cold, chill water or some ice cream in this blistering heat of summer, the joy is felt by the tongue only, isn't it? Arey nahi. The joy passes on, that happiness, that joy, to the entire body, to the whole person, let's call it. जीव, पूरे जीव को सुख पहुंचता है ना, सिर्फ जिह्वा, सिर्फ जुबान को नहीं पहुंचता सुख. इसी तरह से जब हम एक चीज के लिए, एक कम्युनिटी या एक कॉज के लिए, हैप्पीनेस के लिए काम करते हैं, दैट्स व्हेन द एंटायर कम्युनिटी बिगिंस टू गेट हैप्पियर एंड हैप्पियर. It's not isolated. We are so used to seeing things in isolation, but we don't see our body parts in isolation. For example, if while speaking, if I poke my eye by mistake, I'm not going to punish the finger. But if my neighbor's finger pokes my eye, I'll be running for revenge. That's just the way Chinmayaji used to put it. But that's just a figurative way of saying, yes, we don't tolerate other people's weaknesses, we tolerate only our own weaknesses. But trust the law of karma. The law of karma will take care of all the justice. We are not able to forgive because we think na ki unjust hai. Justice is not our department. Law of karma will take care of it. Forgive, be free, move on and revel in that freedom. And then find your mind free to contemplate on the highest. Because we need our mind to be free to contemplate on the highest. I'll just finish quickly with Arjavam. Arjavam is again straightforwardness. Straightforwardness, simplicity, not disparaging, not using sarcastic words, just being very simple. Shakuni and Duryodhan both were not simple. Shakuni had something else on his mind and he was doing some other actions. Actually, Shakuni did not have the welfare of either the Kauravas or the Pandavas in his mind. He wanted to avenge both. And he had his own axe to grind. But no one came to know. They thought he's actually helping the Kauravas. Shakuni was, you know his crookedness. So that is an extreme case. But can we also be totally... Arjavam comes from the root word Riju. Riju means simple, simplicity. Arjun word also comes from Arjavam. That means we just simply speak the truth. Let people know our weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Kya hua hai? At the most they will take advantage of it. It's okay. I can at least be true to myself. Keep the intentions clear. If I give my word to someone ki main ye karunga, make sure that somehow you keep your word. That way you're not troubled by your own conscience. Yes, there are many people who break their promises and they are not troubled by their conscience. So keep your conscience actually very, very, keep your conscience as your own vigilant, as your own sentinel, your soldier, to tell you, I've broken my word. Simple ways. What about Acharya Upasanam? That is, take care of your teacher. Now take care of your teacher means upasanam actually means to worship. Worship is a strong word, but we have gone over it before. It simply means that any teacher who can point out even in the general direction of what? Of the highest truth. Who can keep you on the path. Who can explain them some basic siddhant of karma yoga and dhyan yoga and bhakti yoga and dhyan yoga in the right kind of vocabulary, the right kind of Vedantic vocabulary. Keep a kind of reverence for that person. The person whose voice and whose words coming from the scriptures, of course, bring some kind of silence, some kind of joy, some kind of clarity. Those are the people you can consider as your teachers. And we may even have friends of that kind. You can consider them as your teachers. And a teacher, real teacher of course, a guru, is one who is desirous of only one thing for you. That you find the spiritual path. उसके अलावा उसमें कोई विश होती ही नहीं कि हाँ आपका बहुत सक्सेस हो जाए, आपको एक नया फार्म हाउस मिल जाए, आपके बेटे की शादी हो जाए. अरे उसके लिए बहुत बहुत लोग हैं टू विश द मटेरियल वेलफेयर ऑफ योर फैमिली. That guru wishes only for one thing कि भाई somehow you stick to the spiritual path, उसको छोड़े ना आप. और उसका वो desire, वो दृढ़ निश्चय रहता है गुरु का, उस टीचर का. And that guru keeps igniting the thirst for more and more knowledge. ये है गुरु की पहचान. Actually teacher की. Guru is one who actually takes you to nirvana. That is and who is himself a realized person. उसको हम गुरु कहेंगे. तो यहाँ भगवान ने गुरु का शब्द नहीं इस्तेमाल किया है. My mistake. He has used the word Acharya. See Krishna knows that Guru is the one who is realized and will take you directly to realization. लेकिन बीच में बहुत से teachers Acharya लगते हैं. So he says, revere them too, Acharya. And those in whose company when we sit, we find clarity about the path. Now, by trying to understand what they are saying and by identifying ourselves with the truth spoken in the scriptures through the teacher or Acharya, Acharya is only a medium, a nimitta. Through the words of the teacher, if we can identify with the scriptures, that is the upasana of the Acharya. Upasana. Ki yes, I am going to be Dridha Nischay, I am going to make sure that I stick to the path and I am Sthairya. The next word is Sthairya Matmanam. Dekha? Sthairya next word already aa gaya. That means I stick to the path and my goal, as pointed out by the Acharya, taking from the scriptures. These are not Acharya's goals, they are pointing through the scriptures. And therefore, we can hope to have some purity. If we are able to do these things in our life, simple things, we can have Shaucham, purity, and Atma Vinigraha, self-control. Krishna has taken a lot of effort to make changes in the basic personality, because even basic knowledge of the highest truth does not come when there is an outer covering of all kinds of thoughts and intentions and ideas and perceptions which are all from sansari. तो फिर भगवान के लिए जगह कहाँ है? So भगवान has said very clearly, I want this kind of person. He knows Arjun is that kind of shishya. He is very confident that Arjun will turn out to be his perfect shishya. But he still tells him that, look, I am not indoctrinating you. This is not an indoctrination. This is not a commandment. And this is not a dogma. It is a manual to the art of living. That means it's only a philosophy. And I wish more people would understand that the Bhagavad Gita is a philosophy of right living. It is not a theology, not a religious practice, not an indoctrination, not a dogma or commandment. If they understood this, they would use it easily in their homes and in their schools, and it would come back in our education system. If only we knew what the Gita stands for, a simple philosophy of life. Having said that, we will carry on next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Shri Krishna Arpanam.